Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited you're here. Today, I have such a fun guest with me today, and the way we met is just the coolest thing. So, she is a professional racing driver. She's also an entrepreneur. She is a mechanical engineer. The woman is Superwoman, and she is also a coach of my husband's. So, he is in the sim racing world. So, if you don't know what that is racing on the computer. And Sabra, who is the guest today, is his coach, which is so fun to be talking to you today. Sabra, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm super happy to be here. I get to talk to Michael so much. I'm really excited to talk to the woman that has obviously shared your life with him. I'm super excited to get to hear more about your story too.
It's so fun, and it's just been really a cool experience to see you working with Michael. And at some point of me overhearing, and I only hear half the conversation because you have headphones on, right? So he's listening to you, but I can only hear him talking. But then he'll tell me about all these aha moments, and I'm like, at one point, I was like, I have to talk to her. I need to know about her because when you would give him homework of doing drills and visualization and meditation, I was like, oh, she is someone I need to know.
Yeah, I definitely have. I totally admit I haven't leaned into the visualization manifestation side of things early enough. I
Mm.
was very lucky to have an amazing friend who I went to college with, and she got really into the mindset coaching. And she did a total 180 switch on her career. She was a biochemist, and then she's like, I don't want to work for big pharma. She
Wow.
switched, and basically asked me if I would be her guinea pig. And so
Love
she
that.
became a coach and started working with me on my mindset stuff. And I'd done some visualization and manifestation work in the past with other coaches because obviously it's used a lot in high performance sport. But I
Hmm.
have not dived into it and committed to it as much as I am right now. So definitely thanks to my friend Steph. She's been making sure I'm in the right place and creating the right things in my life.
That's fantastic. Shout out to Steph, and we're going to put a plug for her here, and hopefully we'll have her on the podcast too.
Yes, she's
Because
amazing. She's
yeah,
amazing.
it would be really neat. I actually recently, and I don't know what order these are going to come out, like all of this stuff, but I talked to someone who was or and is still a swimmer, but she was a professional swimmer. Like she was really in that world and in competitive swimming for a really long time. And visualization was a big thing for her. So that is so neat. And I've talked about it on the podcast before with Michael Phelps. He has famously talked about visualization and how it's helped him. And I just think it's fascinating how much our brain can shift our actual performance with our actions. Have you found that pretty interesting too?
Oh, absolutely. Whenever I have a race coming up, I try to do visualizations specific to those races. And it is absolutely shocking sometimes what your brain can create and like how like the universe then kind of like shows up for you and ends up creating the things that you visualize over and over and over again. And I do think it is crazy too, though, how something that I'm really been working on lately is cultivating joy and happiness because I feel
Hmm.
like a lot of people are like, oh, well, if I do these things, I'm supposed to feel it. But then I realized, I'm like, oh, you have to choose it. Like, you have to choose to create it. And so when I started thinking about manifesting it and what that looks like and what it feels like, I then, like, kind of, so it's going to sound strange, but I kind of tapped into the fact that, your brain, you tend to operate in certain frequencies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to use the manifestation, the visualization to jump into that frequency of joy and happiness, and for me, authenticity as well. And just how, when I started doing that, I started seeing like massive shifts in my life and like just all this momentum that pushed me towards my goals a lot faster.
Well, that's so neat. And it doesn't sound silly at all. I don't know if that was the term you used, but I had someone on the podcast. I'll have to remember. I don't know what number it was, but I'll make sure it's in the show notes. And she has become a dear friend of mine. Her name is Rachel. She owns Brain Code Centers. They're all over the US. It's pretty amazing. And we happen to have one here in Tulsa, and she lives here part-time. And she does brain mapping and neurofeedback. And so I know what you're talking about with these waves and tapping into it, and it's fascinating. And so I had my brain mapped and realized where I don't want to use the word deficiency, but like basic, she explains it like gears of a car, which is fun for you, and how you're going into these different speeds and how you need different gears. And what happens is sometimes in our brains that gear shifter isn't working.
Yes, we
And
get
that
stuck
was, yeah,
often
and
in
we're
like
like stuck in a different
survival
way.
and all of those things. That's like kind of our comfort zone, and I feel like it's so easy to get stuck in those frequencies and not be able to like realize that you're holding yourself back.
Right. So neat. So, okay, we're talking about that, and I feel like there's so many questions I want to ask about, and that we're going to dive into it and that feeling of stuck and how you move through it. But before we go into it, I always like to ask people on the podcast about their personality type, because sometimes I have seen that that can really impact how we not only set a goal but also pursue it. Because there's not a one size fits all like plan for like going and doing the thing, and especially when we do feel stuck. So, do you resonate with any personality test, and are you willing to share what you are in the
Yes,
categories?
absolutely. So I guess the one that I can think of off the top of my head is the Myers-Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
I am INFJ. As far as like, I don't know if this applies, but I'm like on the cusp of being a Taurus and a Gemini. Sometimes I don't
Okay.
feel like that applies to me as much as some of the other personality tests.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of started to jump into the personality test type because of coaching. When I was younger, I was learning, there's all different ways that people learn. And I'm definitely like a visual kinesthetic learner. And I started asking my students before I started working with them, I'm like, okay, like what way do you like to learn? And obviously, if
Mm-hmm.
they're younger kids, I usually ask the parents, I'm like, what kind of
Right.
learners are your kids? But then I found like a really short test that actually did the Myers-Briggs test,
Oh,
and I
cool.
would send them the link, and I get them to take the test before I started working with them, so that
Mm-hmm.
way I understood more about their personality types and how I could best support them as a coach. I haven't done that as much lately because I feel like I've started to get at least more experience as a coach, and then I feel like I can start to gauge it
Mm-hmm.
more easily just through my experience of interacting with the student. But I think it does play a big role in my experience of how I can support my students.
I agree. As a coach myself, I mean, I feel like you're saying something similar of like some of these things we learn and we're like, gosh, I should have done that earlier. Like you were saying about visualization. For me, I wish I had thought about using personality tests when I first started coaching, because I've been coaching since 2017. And I wish I had that information back from all of these clients. I'm just now in the last year or so been asking about that. And it's been really interesting to see how certain people like to be held accountable in a different way. And
Yes.
so some people just need me to tell them what to do, and which sounds really bossy. That's not what I do. Just so anyone listening who's like, I wonder what Amanda does. That's not what I do. I'm not a bossy person in terms of like, you have to do this. But what it comes across is like, I very specifically help them prioritize is what typically happens. Like
Yes.
they know
Yeah.
what to do, they have a list of things to do, but I can help them prioritize. And that's super helpful for most people. But other people just want me to say, what did you do this week? And like leave it way more open. So it's been
Yeah.
really interesting to see how that plays in.
I'm interested that, so like for my personality type, like what
Mhm.
traditionally do someone with my personality type normally want?
I think I'm going to like, and you're catching me at a really interesting time, which is why I'm like at a hard pause right now. If you would have asked me this question a month ago, I would have had like a quick answer of like, this is what typically works. Here's the thing. I have decided to do a massive research project. I didn't know it was going to be massive at first. Michael and I are walking around the neighborhood, and I was like, you know what? I think that personality tests are something people really resonate with, and I think I can somehow connect what I do with these personality tests. 15-minute walk has turned into like a 15-month process over here. And I'm knee deep in this research. And so I'm questioning everything I thought I knew. So, anyways, I'm going to have you take the survey after we after we get
Okay.
off this call. But the harder part for what I'm doing is that I'm analyzing. Right now, I have 16 personality tests that I'm looking at. So I'm not an expert in all of them, but the introvert part stands out to me because introverts and extroverts typically are different in terms of what they like from obviously interaction with others, but you're more introspective. So for me, knowing you're an introvert, I would probably have more reflection questions for you of, oh, I want to know, or I want you to go this week and think about these three things. Whereas an extrovert, not that it's 100% like they can't reflect. That's not what it is. They'll do it right there on the call. Like they can probably just answer the question. The other one is the feeling. So the F, the feeling, it really connects with the visual learner.
Yes, yeah. I feel like if I don't have that, it's so much harder for me to digest information. Like, when you meet someone new, I'm a horrible audio learner. So, going through school and going through lectures, it was the worst thing for me. I needed to like write down everything. And so when you go to introduce yourself to someone and you shake their hand and they say their name, I feel like I'm just in one ear, out the other.
Yeah.
But if they have a name tag, I'm 100% more likely to remember their name because I can see it.
That's fantastic. Okay, every place needs to have name tags when we have events.
Just walk around at all times with name tags.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm also similar with that. And I even try so hard to say their name like 3 times in the conversation. Sometimes it still doesn't even work.
I feel like I'm so worried sometimes about like making sure I don't miss their hand for the handshake that I'm so stressed about that then I'm like, oh no, I totally didn't even listen to your name and now we're in this conversation and I don't know what your name is.
Right. I was talking about this to someone and I don't know who to give credit to for this, but the lady said to me, Amanda, it's okay if you just say, can you remind me of your name again? It's fine. And I thought, oh, thank you for giving me that permission.
I've had some people do that to me, and obviously my name isn't the easiest thing to say, so I think sometimes they maybe have an idea of what it is, but having me repeat it definitely makes them feel more confident in knowing what my name is. So
that's true. And it makes me laugh. I love what you've done with your content. I'm going to take us on a tangent for just a minute, and I'll make sure to link things in the show notes. You have had so much fun with that because you recognize that it was a sticking point for people.
Yes.
And so for everyone listening, Sabre's name is spelled Sabre, but it's pronounced with an A at the end, obviously with Sabre. And clearly that
totally everybody knows how accents work.
Yes.
Like that.
And oh my gosh, you have just had so much fun with it. So I think it's cool that you've taken something that could be frustrating because some people get really offended if someone pronounces their name wrong, and you've had a lot of fun with it. How have you done that?
I guess I have to attribute that to my father. And he has a great sense of humor, and so they're always kind of like, oh, if you're not teasing, if they're not teasing you or making fun of you, they probably don't like you kind of situation. And so I've just learned to laugh at myself a lot.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've just kind of taken it and made it fun. And I think me as a person, I enjoy laughter. I enjoy being funny. If I can use my name. And I think also, we kind of spoke about this previously, having a really great network is really important. Like in any business and anything, it's like your network is your net worth. And so especially in motorsports as a driver, because you're always working on sponsorships, trying to raise capital to keep racing. And it's very important as a driver to find ways to stand out. And so obviously my name is a great touch point to stand out. So if I just introduce myself and they're like, oh, how do you say that? And I say it again, they're less likely to remember that is if I go, it's like Porsche, but Sabre. If I make it like a funny quip, then they're like, 100% they're going to remember me more likely than if I were to just, be flatlined. Yep, my name is Sabre, and that's about it. So I think it's perfect. Been a powerful networking tool for me as well.
I love that you've done that. This, a lot of people listening on this podcast, which now you can speak to even more because we've talked about your personality type. A lot of people come to me because if it's not clear, I am an extrovert. I could talk to people all day long and be fine with it. Love being in a room full of people. It's so fun for me. I come alive with that sort of thing. But most people listening, maybe not most, a lot of people are the complete opposite of that and actually hate networking. But you have had fun with it in some way, which I think is super cool that you connected it with Porsche, who is your, I don't know, what would you call them? Because you're in the Porsche Cup.
So I'm a Porsche driver development driver. So I'm part of the Porsche Mobile One Female Driver Program North America. I was the first member back in 2023 because there was
So
no women
cool.
that had raced in the series prior to that. So Porsche Motorsports North America has been a really great ally and partner for me over the last several seasons in making sure that I stay on the track.
I love it so much. Shout out to Portia for doing that. I mean, man, kudos to you. Being the first of, first female to do something in a specific league with a specific brand, that's a big freaking deal. I mean, not to like make it you nervous about that, but it's like so cool that you were able to do that. And so a lot of people listening to this podcast are kind of blazing a new trail in entrepreneurship, and that's what you've done. Whether you call yourself an entrepreneur, I'm going to give you the title because that's what you're doing and that's what you've done. And you have to call the shots in your career and do these things. And so how have you approached that idea of blazing a new trail and like doing things that either you haven't seen done before or you personally just haven't done before? Because oftentimes that is a very scary thing to do.
I thank you for dubbing me an entrepreneur because I guess I didn't realize that's what I was doing until I was in the middle of it and I was like, wait, I am a small business. This is exactly
Right.
what small business owners are going through. So I guess like from a very young age, I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was like a modeled behavior from my parents or if it's just how I came out. But I can remember from, I don't even know how young, just having this mindset of I'll figure it out. So whether I don't know how to do it, either I'm going to ask somebody how to do it, I'm going to look it up, or I'll just figure it out on my own. Sometimes that's maybe not the best, trying to figure it out on your own, but I've learned the hard way to make sure that you have a great team around you and a lot of resources. It helps you get there faster. And even though I think a lot of small business owners too, you're like, oh, well, I can't afford to do that. I can't afford to invest in that. I don't have. But I think what I've learned in race car driving and in being an entrepreneur is sometimes you just have to take that jump. So the best thing that I can make an analogy to is when you're driving a race car that has a lot of aero on it, which means a lot of like wings or things that create downforce that keep the car on the track more easily, gives it more grip. There's a point when you're driving a car that has a lot of aero where if you go just a little bit faster, it's still going to be sketchy and you're probably going to crash. But if you go just like a jump faster, that much more faster, you'll actually have more grip. It'll generate more downforce and then it just kind of, the car just works better. So I kind of relate that to being an entrepreneur. You have to just kind of make that big enough of a jump. It's almost like you just have to invest in, like, like, oh, I can't afford to have the right people in place. It's like, well, you just have to jump and know that if you invest in having the right people in place, it's going to allow you to generate more capital and run your business so much better. So then in the long term, you end up making money rather than spending money, if that makes sense. So
I love that analogy. I think
yeah.
it's fantastic because, I love when we can relate things to whether someone knows racing or not. We can understand a car and how it needs to stay on the ground. It needs to stay there. And so doing something, and there's like that, there's always this fine line of like pushing too hard. You may run into a wall, and that's what everyone's scared of. That's the entrepreneur listening is like, I'm scared that I'm going to fail in front of everyone and, mess something up. Right. And you have to think about that in a real car, which costs a lot of money when you mess it up.
It does. It does. But I guess the thing that racing has also given me is the ability to fail many, many times in front of many, many people. So you kind of just get used to it and you get used to having the criticism. Oh, I say used to it. It's never easy, right? To not live up to your expectations and to be criticized. But it definitely gives me more experience with it. And so sometimes maybe I am a little bit more comfortable with taking those risks because I'm like, I already failed in front of all these people. What else could go wrong? So let's just go for it. But I've learned so much over the last so many years and I've had some really great mentors and I think that has been a critical role into helping me be successful, like with my sponsorships and partnerships, is having these mentors that you don't go out looking for them, but they kind of just find you and they just offer you these little bits and pieces along the way, and you just try to keep learning and kind of making a mishmash of all the things that you get, and just try to always kind of wake up and make it better the next day than it was the day before.
Love that. Sounds so simple and it's so easy to forget that all we're doing is waking up and trying to do a little bit better than we did the day before.
Some days it feels overwhelming.
Yeah.
I definitely, the part where you said having the confidence and doing the thing kind of gives you the confidence. I think that us as women entrepreneurs, sometimes I don't think we make as big of a jump in that positive direction as quickly as our male counterparts, because have you talked to a man from the ages between 16 and 35? The confidence level that they have, like, I am envious. I'm like,
Same.
dang, imagine what I could get done if I
Right.
just had that level of confidence. It's actually so impressive. So when I started observing this, right, like I'm around a lot of guys that age that I'm racing against, and I'm like, it just works out for them because they just are absolutely totally committed in their brains. It's like, nope, it's gonna happen. And then I started realizing, okay, well, other than like, yes, it is annoying because sometimes they are cocky, but you're like, there's some magic to this. And knowing that you just have to kind of almost believe and just know that it's going to happen before it actually does. And then taking that leap of faith to do the action to give you the confidence, and then it works out, and you're like, oh my gosh, it worked. It did it.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't, but we have to still believe. And I think that's what
Yes.
gets us. And, we're not trying to say that guys are awful, right? Obviously, I'm
No.
married to one. You're about to be married to one. We love them. They're great. It's so interesting, the difference in the confidence. But I think what happens, and this is me not being a therapist, so I always have to say, like, that is not my scope of work. But when typically, putting people in a bucket here, which is never usually fair, typically speaking, when a guy like fails in something, it's quicker to like go back and do the same thing again because that confidence is there. Whereas a female trying to do something, especially if you're the only female doing something, like you being the only female at Porsche driving a car, you're not now, but at first, right? And all these entrepreneurs listening, and they're like, a lot of women they're like starting, or they've started and seen some success, but not as much as they want. And they then almost feel guilty for wanting more. And there's like this thing that happens where it's like, well, that didn't come easy to me, or that didn't feel right. I can't do it again, or I shouldn't do it again. What are your thoughts on that?
Actually kind of in the middle of that right now. I've had to just kind of keep the faith and trust the process that it's going to eventually work out. It's no secret, like my dad loves to joke. He's like, sorry, honey, you were born to the wrong family. My parents have taught me so much, and I have a lot of great character because of them. But in motorsports, money is king, and I did not come from a family that can just pay for me to race whatever I want, whenever I want. So that's why I've had to become, a small entrepreneur and learn how to build these partnerships. So I think when I started to go into the car world, in karting, I was like very successful. I had lots of national championships, world championships, but then I went to the car world, and everything is very expensive. It's hard just to get seat time to practice. And so going up against my male counterparts or just anybody that had more seat time, I didn't do as well. And so I'm like still, I feel like fighting through that stage where I'm like, these are my goals and I haven't quite reached them yet. And I have been going through so many things. Like I'm like, I did all this effort, I put in all this work, and you're not quite achieving it. And I would say like the biggest insight and the way that I'm trying to deal with it right now is I am constantly trying to evolve into making sure that the way that I'm training, and like, yes, because maybe I can't afford to drive on the track as much as others, but I can use other tools to the best of my ability. So I've been working with iZone, is a company they're based in the UK. They do a ton of like simulator work, and which like, ties back to how we end up meeting. But like when there's a lot of new information and obviously proven results of people coming from the sim world and being extremely successful in real life. So I'm like, okay, well, I have this tool. How do I make it as most effective as I possibly can to try to bridge the gap to some of the other things? And then also just, I think trusting the process was some of the best advice that I ever got early on in my career. One of my mentors, David Tennyson, I remember the first conversation we had about it. He's like, you've got to trust the process. And so I'm just like, okay, everything will happen in its time. But something that I the other thing that I already kind of spoke on is trusting and knowing that I've been a champion in the past, so there's no reason why I couldn't be again. And just trusting that it's going to happen as long as I continue to put in the work, push myself to kind of be my best in every area, and it'll come. That's what I'm trying to do. So I'll let you guys know if it works. We'll have a catch up later.
I'm going to catch one word that you just said, if it works. So I'm going to say when it works.
When it works. There we go. You're right. You got to correct me.
Well, I have to be corrected all the time too. So you're not alone. Other people have to be there for us. And I want to talk about that. But first, I do want to bring something to the surface just in case someone missed it. I don't think they did, but maybe we need to hear it twice. Trust the process, and having that feeling and having that faith in yourself and what's coming next, but also doing the dang work. Because you're not just sitting in your house thinking, I hope it happens. You're finding ways to bridge the gap. You're putting in the energy, you're putting in the effort so that no matter what, even if you get to the other side and it's like, well, this isn't working, it's time to do something else, you can say, I gave it everything that I had. And that's a big freaking deal. And I just think I want to give you the kudos for that, because you have to put in the energy and the effort just as much as you have to trust the process.
Yes, it is. It is easy to forget how much work we need to put in. I know everyone's like, how you doing? Oh, I'm so busy, super hard, working hard. Like, we're always kind of like comparing that when we talk to each other. I think that what's kind of opened my eyes is reading a lot of like books and listening to podcasts of like how, Olympic athletes, how they train, and like the amount of reps and the amount of hours. I think it's really hard for majority of people. It was hard for me to comprehend like the amount of hours that it really takes to be the top 1%. It's impressive. And once I got that in my head, I was like, okay, just put in the reps, put in the reps, put in the reps. That's kind of what I've started doing with Michael as well, right? Like giving him the drills, and I'm like, just trust the drills. It's going to take time, but it's like every day you have to work at it, every single day.
Yeah. At one point, he came around and he was like, you and Sabre definitely need to meet, because she said something that you say all the time. And I was like, oh, that's funny. And it was when he said, well, I didn't get to my drills this time, this week, or whatever it was, in between your two coaching sessions. And he said something along the lines that you said, and that's fine, like life happens, but if you don't do it, it's just going to take longer. And he was like, and that's when I knew you'd be friends.
I did tell him that. I was like, so it took me, because the great thing is I've gone through the drills, so like I can give him a reference. I'll be like, well, it took me this many days of doing it straight before I really noticed a big difference. And so then I think of, well, if he's not doing it as much as I am, it's just going to take him that much longer to notice a difference.
And it's like, when we say it like that, it's like, well, of course that's going to happen. Like, of course that's how it works. But our brain wants the quick fix, the thing that's going to hit the fast forward button. But in my opinion, the fast forward button is surrounding yourself with people who've been on that path before. So you've talked about having team members that are supporting you, and sponsors, and all of this, and coaches. You've surrounded yourself to fill those limitations, gaps, whatever we want to call them. And I think it's so neat how once we know what the barrier is, what the gap is, we can fill it. Sometimes it takes money, sometimes it takes time, sometimes it's both. And we just have to be okay with that and not feeling like any shame around needing that. And I want to give a shout out to one of your sponsors. And they do not know me at all, by the way. But just knowing you through Michael and hearing you talk about this sponsor, and not only that they've been a sponsor of yours, but also, I believe, has become a mentor of yours as well. And the sponsor is Privé. So super shout out to the team over at Privé, and just being that person, being that company that can help you in the time that you need, in both financial and other support as well. How has the people that have surrounded you impacted the way in which you're able to perform?
I mean, it's been massive. Like, you were definitely more than yourself, right? Like, what you end up being able to produce as an athlete or a business, it's all about the people. Like, everything, it's all a people business. We were talking about mentors, someone that has become a business mentor for me, right? I didn't really have one of those until more recently. It is the CEO of Privé. Her name's Shay Holscher. She used to work, I feel like, for any and every like massive big hair care company. So she's had a really big career like in the upper management, like C-suites of these massive corporations. And I didn't know it, but it totally makes sense. Like she was usually one of the only women that were in upper management, even though it was hair care. And so she's used to kind of being the only woman in the room as well. And so we really connected on that. And she loves Portia, so that made it easy as well.
Right.
But I've definitely had to learn how to navigate some very tricky business situations and relationships over the last few years. And having someone like her who's been there, she's seen it, she's done it, she's been a really great ally for me and a great wealth of knowledge for me to be like, stuff hit the fan, what do I do?
Right.
And she's like, okay. And I think it's also very helpful too because she is incredibly authentic as a human, and obviously that's reflected in now her business of Privé Hair Care because it's all about like clean, pure, good ingredients. And so the fact that we share those values allows me to trust that I know that she's giving me the right advice for the situation because we do share that. And I always want to, put my best foot forward, and I always want to do the right thing. And because she's like kind of equally yoked in that, I feel like I've just benefited so much from her advice through all of the difficult things. So it's been a really impressive and really just beneficial relationship all the way around. And she also supports like women in so many ways. They give 1% of all profits of Privé to Project Beauty Share, which is basically, we talk about feeling confident. Mm-hmm. So what Project Beauty Share does is they provide essential things for women to feel normal, right? Like when you go into a job interview, if you haven't been able to wash and you can't shampoo your hair, you don't have like something that makes you feel more like a human and you're just in a tough spot in your life, it makes a big difference when you do have access to those things, and it gives you that confidence to be like, yes, like I deserve to be here, I want this job and I can do this. So it's kind of like bridging that gap for women that are in a tough spot to give them that confidence to go out and kind of go into the next thing in their lives.
That's fantastic. I will make sure to have all the links in the show notes to Privé and to all of the projects and all the things, because that's so important. And I think, everyone listening is like, most people are wanting to grow their business in some way. Some people are wanting to scale down because they've grown it so well and now they're ready to scale down. But it's all about like doing hard things in your life and in your business. And at some point, a lot of females run into this crossroads of, well, I shouldn't make more money, or we have a lot of money stories going on. But what I want to say is that when we make more money, we can make a bigger impact, and we can do the things like give away 1% of our profits. When our needs are met financially, we can do that. And it sounds like you'll do that too, as your business and your life really grows and you're able to give back too, which is a really fun thing.
I look forward to the days when I am that financially blessed and I'm able to be in a position to do that. So I'm really excited. I definitely agree that women, we tend to, we shoulda, coulda, woulda kind of things to ourselves too much. I've had to really get honest with myself about what stories I tell myself on wealth and like money specifically. Like telling myself, money is a great thing. It's not a bad thing. You're not a bad person if you have money. Like if you have it, you can do more good. It is a good thing. And I think we have so many stories tied to it that often hold us back in ways we don't really understand. So I've definitely had to get really clear on that myself as well.
I think we all do. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being courageous enough to say it out loud on a podcast, because we all have these weird money stories, and we're not trying to poke at our parents or whoever raised us in any way. They did the best they could with what they had. And so that's just the experience we have. But I think digging into those money stories is so important. I feel like it's a constant battle that I am going through the same thing. And it's like, and you'll be hit with these things. And sometimes those mind blocks, those money mindset blocks, will actually stop you from making more money, which is
Absolutely
unbelievable to me that I see it time and time again.
Absolutely. And something that Steph often brings up is, when we're working on something that's like, oh, I need to shift my mindset around this, the story I have around this. And she's like, okay, But just remember, when you ask for something different, the universe is going to come up to you with a problem that's going to test this new boundary that you're setting. So I feel like that happens a lot to like me and to many others, where you're like, okay, I'm going to correct my thinking on this, like I'm gonna go to this new thing, and then we immediately get met with something that is like so challenging and is literally like the universe being like, are you sure that you want to set that boundary? Because you're telling me you want to, so I'm gonna give you a chance to set it. And then you're like, no, and you're like, I have to. And a lot of times like you cave, right? Like it doesn't end up holding, because you're like, this is a new thing for me, I don't know. And so sometimes it does take resetting that boundary several times, many times, before it actually sticks.
I agree with this wholeheartedly. And I swear every time I've pivoted my business, because I've pivoted several times since 2017, and every time that I'm like, okay, here, I'm going to do it. And then the universe brings the previous client to me and like, okay, I want to show up at your doorstep. And I'm like, oh, that's revenue. Oh, that's revenue. But I can confidently say I am getting much better at that because I've exercised the muscle. The first several times of the pivoting, I did not exercise that muscle and hold that boundary. Now I'm much more comfortable. And I've even found myself saying, I just said no to something, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that something else better for me in that moment is about to come this way. But sometimes it takes a while. And I have to trust the process.
It is trust this process seems to always be the answer to it, but eventually it sticks, hopefully.
It does. It does. Eventually. It's just not as fast as we want it to happen. Just like Michael and his drills. He wants to know what he wants to have that, thing happening, whatever it is, because we all do. I want to do all these different things. And it's like, well, it's going to take some time to kind of see that to fruition. Sabre, this has been so wonderful. I know people are going to want to learn more from you and talk to you and all that good stuff. And so I'm going to make sure that you get a chance to say where people can find you. But before you do that, I always like to leave everyone listening with one action they can actually take. And especially because we were talking about it earlier of we can trust the process, and that's great. And we can think about things and dream about the big goals, but we have to take the action. So after all we've talked about today, if someone could go do something right now today, as soon as this episode is over, what would you suggest that they do?
There's so many things, I feel like. I do want to, that is a disclaimer. I feel like we're always like, we want actions, but like my whole like journey as an athlete, as an entrepreneur, and like through life, self-development, everything, it's always like the right pieces clicking together at the right times kind of thing. Because you'll hear a lot of the same things over and over again, but they don't really click for you until you're kind of ready to take action in that step. So I think it's been a series of a lot of great things that I have eventually been like, oh yeah, I've heard that a lot, and now I'm actually going to try to apply it. So, but right now, I would say, if I had to think of one thing that's like made a massive difference for me on like my own journey of self-development, would be, I think it starts with self-talk. And I know it sounds like very generic, right? Like everyone's like, self-talk. You hear that, it's a hot topic. But getting really clear on like how you want to speak to yourself and what that version of you that you want to be looks like. And then visualizing that version of you, or whatever it is your goal may be, before you go to bed. And like getting really clear on this, having like a mantra that's like, this is what I want, this is who I want to be, and this is what it's going to look like. Just like super like, bam, 1, 2, 3, and then it's actually crazy how much your brain will start creating that in your life.
That's a fantastic action. I know you're like, what is it? What is it? And trying to get there because there were so many things. That was perfect. That was absolutely perfect, because it's going to look different for each and every person listening. And so you're not saying, think this or do this or anything like that. It's like, identify what it is that you want. Oprah's really famous for saying this of like, I got what I want because I knew what I wanted.
Clarity is very important.
And most of us lack it because we're going too fast. Speaking of race cars.
Slow down. Your race car driver telling you to slow down.
I love that. That's the clip you'll have to use at some point, is like, you have to slow down in order to figure out what you actually want. So thank you so much. Sabre, where can people connect with you and find out more about you?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's sabrecookracing.com. Sabre is how the first name is spelled, in case you're confused. And from there, you can connect to pretty much everything. There is a contact form as well as all of my social media channels. So if you want to see any funny videos, click on one of those. You'll
Yes.
find something.
I love following you on Instagram. It's so fun. You really do make it fun. And sometimes we can get in our head that social media is not fun or it has to be a slog and we have to put out all this stuff. You have a blast with it and it's inspiring to see.
Definitely, I'm totally honest. I was many times, I go up and down. I'm like, oh my God, this is so much work. I don't like it.
Right.
But it's essential to grow your business. So definitely try to make it fun, right? Like you have to cultivate joy in anything you choose to do. So I'm trying to choose that it's going to be fun.
Mm. Those are some powerful words. I'm sitting here, if you're listening, you couldn't see it, but I shut my eyes. It was like I needed to hear that. I think we all need to hear that is we need to choose making things joyful. We need to choose if we are going to say, yes, I am going to use Instagram, because that is a choice. You don't have to, but you can. If you choose you're going to use Instagram, then choose to make it joyful at the same time. I love that. Wonderful. Sabre, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Me too. And for everyone else, thank you so much for spending time with us. We know that you have so many options when it comes to listening to podcasts or doing other things. And so thank you for spending time with us. And until next time, keep being accountable.